Okay, I'm impressed because when the season started, I felt that ironically, keeping it as two tribes made it harder for me to figure out who was who, and when the first several people were going, I'm like, didn't really get to know them that much, especially the first three. After that, it got a little better, but I'm like, not too sure about this. But then we started having those tribe switches, and dynamics of the game kept changing, and in the end, this cast really grew on me. Like, even at the merge, when I felt like some of the more dynamic people kept getting the boot, the people that were like in the middle actually demonstrated there was a little bit more to them than I had come to anticipate, and this cast really proved their worth. So good on you guys. Right. So we winding the tape. Since we had a blue tribe versus a non-blue tribe, and there's just two, did I root for Asana like I typically seem to do with blue tribes? Not really, ironically. I think I did have more moments where I rooted for them, but it wasn't the same. It wasn't like my rooting through Hunapu and San Juan del Sur, Upolu and South Pacific, Solani, you know? It wasn't the same. Because there were people on both tribes that I liked, and again, while I felt the dynamics on Asana were a little more interesting, it was Summertown had interesting dynamics as well, and I was thinking for a long while they seemed to be the quote-unquote nicer tribe. You can easily argue against me, but it was a lot of fun to get to know these guys, as I said, after the first several boots there, and the challenges for this season, very well designed. Don't even really mind the rehashing of challenges from the American version any more. And even then, they seem to provide a decent amount of mixing up or tiny differences on some of them, because Survivor US did holding on to the idol multiple times, Borneo All Stars, Africa Marquesas, but they never did it near a cliff where you could get baffled by the wash of the ocean, you know, so yeah. Good on these guys. Jonathan, again, he's doing pretty well as a host. Sure, there were way too many moments of an incredible comeback. Not really. There were some good comebacks, don't get me wrong, like when it was that Final 8 and we had those two teams of 4. Orange coming back from a 3-0 deficit, that was a good comeback because every version of pairs that, you know, missed the point ended up owning the point on the second try. So, that was a comeback, but he really said that too often. Every comeback is not an incredible comeback. I mean, really. And there were a couple moments where I think you could argue that he was playing favorites, but I think if you really read into these people's behavior and then you see just how much sportsmanship is emphasized, well, softly emphasized on this Australian version, I think you'll just come to realize that he's just trying to ease the negativity in a lot of these situations. I don't think that he has favorites, because if he was playing favorites, would he still be hosting? Because I'm pretty sure that he hosts every season after this. I doubt it. Right, so you could definitely argue that Nico for Survivor South Africa has more moments than Jonathan has, and have they gotten rid of him? No. Right. The little twerks that were in here, like having a super idol, which is really the Australian Survivors version of the idol nullifier, I don't think it's a totally bad idea. I do recognize, though, the differences between this nullifier and what they did in David vs. Goliath. Because in David vs. Goliath, you had to play the idol nullifier while you were writing down the votes. So it was a gamble as to if an idol would be used at all. Whereas here, you play the idol nullifier just like another idol, because even though this did lead to Annalise being voted out when, had this nullifier slash super idol not existed, well, she would have saved herself. Is this really any different than Kelly Wentworth in Second Chances standing up playing her idol, and then Jeremy realizing, okay, most likely I'm gone now, so I'm going to play my idol. Let's hope none of them voted for Tasha. Yeah. Is this that much different other than the exact result? It's a very interesting thought process to think about. So there is a part of me that thinks, it might be a little overpowered, but then the fact that it seemed like there really wasn't that much re-hiding of hidden immunity idols this season, because I think that the idol was re-hidden on Summertown after no, it was re-hidden multiple times, because you had AK play it, then you had Tarzan find it, and then he gives it to I forget her name right now, but then someone later finds it again. But it seems like once the merge happened, they didn't re-hide the idols, even after Ziggy played hers. That's interesting. But it definitely shows that there's less emphasis on idols and twists, twerks, whatever you want to call it, and instead it's a lot more honest voting, even though this does feel like Samoa through Worlds Apart gameplay here, because, yeah, and that's a welcome change, where less gimmicks, keep the idols, and just have the people do the thing. Like, what was so bad about the Samoa through Worlds Apart formats? What, you're arguing that people were getting stale about it? Big Brother is virtually the same format and people still watch that all the time. Huh? Come on. Okay. So we're like 8 minutes in and I barely talked about the contestants proper. Well, as I said, I think that the dynamics on Asana were a tiny bit more interesting, but what Summertown was doing was as interesting. Like, you had Locky, the powerhouse, you had AK, the guy who couldn't fit in at first, but then managed to actually carve a rather interesting niche for himself. You had Jared, the wild card. You had Tara, who seems to have a whole bunch of problems, but then really showed her worth. Ziggy, who I think actually can play this game fairly well, she just didn't have the edit to back her up. And then there's Annalise, who tried and then just had a couple problems along the way. And then on Asana, you had Luke, the wild card, who actually managed to do quite a good amount of damage out there. Jericho, again the wild card, who proved a good amount of worth. Sarah, the girl who was trying to form an alliance with everybody. Everyone figured it out, and yet she got really down far into that situation and then actually managed to bury the hatchet with the person who wanted to vote her out, because after, she and Luke came together with Tara and Jericho so that they could all vote out Odette, which I was totally surprised by. It really did seem like they buried the hatchet, and if remember when Sarah was voted out, she says that she actually wanted Luke to win the game. Huh? That says something. And then you had the people that were booted out early. You had Kent, who had one heck of an adventure there. Henry, who really tried to control way too much of this game, but got really far for someone who was trying to do that. Just, whoa, this cast, yeah. I mean, like, they did have some more negative moments, I think, than last season's cast, because I will argue that this season wasn't as positive as last season, but at the same time, the fact that we had more people, I think, doing stuff and more people proving their worth when you were worried that the more dynamic people were getting booted, because when we had Tezza, Sarah, and Luke all go right after each other, and it became clear that Loki, although I never truly rooted for the guy, was gonna get booted when he lost immunity. I'm like, not too sure about this, but then we had Jericho and Tara prove themselves, and even then Michelle, she actually went out pretty positively, because I was not expecting Tara to write her name down, but I guess she ended up reading Peter and Jericho and realized, hey, if Michelle ends up getting eliminated, I might have a tougher time at the end, but I think these guys are going to take me. It's a strategy, because that's what Spencer and Jeremy did in Cambodia. Well, they're like, hey, why don't we team up, find a third who has no chance, and then we can get rid of this competition. Sure, we'll have a tough time at the end, but we can wipe out everyone else. They're not going to see it coming until it's too late, because even before that season started, I was like, people should think that you're going to align together due to that Mr. Survivor connection. Ironically, I don't think they will, so own it. They did. So just read the people and just figure things out. I really appreciated this. Like, the only person that I think honestly ended up getting a edit that was kind of bad was Peter, because, okay, yeah, as I alluded to, Ziggy, I saw potential from her, but due to what everyone else was doing and what she could do, it didn't turn out to be that much. But, like, Peter, even when he and AK did that switch over to Asana, and AK was voted out, Peter and a couple of other people were saying, you know, he's in danger, but I'm looking at him and I'm like, this is weak. He's the person that should be in danger the most. And I'm just like, where the heck have you come from, buddy? And even those first few boots into the merge, we barely got anything from him. And once, Sarah was voted out, he started getting some more power in the game, but even then, it just, I'm looking at him and I go, don't win, do not win. Like, you do not have the right amount of camera time to deserve that. Everyone else, I can make that argument for you, So, good thing he didn't, because even though once I got to the final free challenge, I knew this wouldn't happen, but I knew if it had been him versus Jericho, I think Jericho would have taken that, and I would argue that Tara would have beaten him, who knows? Because as I said, there's no way to really read into this jury as far as I know, and I can't go and listen to Rob Sesternino's stuff about this, because I might get spoilers for the upcoming seasons. Right. Is there anything else that I can mention here? Oh yeah, the removing of Tessa from the jury situation. I did think it was kind of interesting that we had a jury member removal before the jury was finished, I don't think that that's a good idea, because it was a lot more impactful in Co-Ron because the jury had been finalized, and that was one of the finalists doing something to help them out. Now, of course, the counter argument to that is, well, by doing it this way, it leaves some more unpredictability. Yeah, but I don't know, just I think I'm of the argument that it should have been when the jury was finalized, or maybe you shouldn't have done that. You should have just had the jury start one vote earlier, so that way you can still do final two, because I'm not picky about it being a final two. Okay, oh, no. Okay. I take that back a little bit, because now that I'm seeing final two after so long of dominance established by Final 3 on literally every other version of Survivor that speaks English that I've watched, including the first season of Survivor Israel, which I got subtitles for. Now that I see that, I do understand how much tougher it is to make that work, although coincidentally, when we've gotten to the final fours here, there's always a group of three that's trying to take out one target and then is willing to fight it amongst each other to do the top two, and these casts, they've been pretty interesting. And like this final two, way better than last season, because last season I was able to read the edit and go, okay, this person is most likely to go based on challenge record and relations of other people, but the person that everyone seems to be arguing without actually saying this is most likely to win has gotten the worst edit out of all of them. And I was right, so I was able to predict a comeback in that last episode that no one expected, and that's exactly what happened. This time, even though my gut happened to be right that Tara was guaranteed final two no matter who won that challenge, and that one of the guys was going to go, and that Jericho would most likely beat Tara, I still felt like there was enough doubt, and then get this. Even though I was thinking that Jericho would beat Tara, ironically, literally right as the jury was writing down everyone the votes for the winner, and Sarah ended up voting for Tara, I'm like, ooh, I'm actually thinking Tara's gonna win this. Well, run on me, because Sarah was the only person that really flipped in this situation, and I'm a tiny bit bummed by that, but hey, she assessed them honestly and wrote down who she felt deserved to win the game, okay? She was allies with both of those two for a decent amount of time in this game. I'm not complaining about it, I'm not. And what's really ironic was that Jericho, despite his odd or lack thereof, depending on your point of view, social gameplay, he only got his name written down in the final four. Yeah. That's the only time his name was written down this whole game. I didn't even realize that. So, good on you. Although I do find it a little odd that this version of Survivor doesn't seem to be doing a fan favorite, because Survivor South Africa and Survivor New Zealand did that. Really wonder who would have gotten that. Somehow I'm thinking Lucky, but I could be wrong on that. So, to wrap this up, started off kind of but this cast really grew on me. It did have more negative moments than last season, but given how the final two was a lot better this season and not anywhere near as obvious in my mind, and the fact that we only had two tribes for the entire season, I think I'll argue that this season is better than last season, and I'm looking forward to continuing with this. Here's to hoping that I enjoy these next 3 seasons.